Ladies and Germans, how you all doing? This is Con Ulrich.
This is Rangaroo, hello, hello, hello.
And folks, do not attempt to adjust your sets. We are on Tannenberg, and yes, this is an Axis throwdown. Rank, what do we have going on here?
Left hand side in the blue, we have Gonzo playing 17th SS with a Juggernaut income. Right hand side in red, we have Shkodder playing first low verse with a balanced income, and right off the bat, Shkodder is going to get in some eyes on Gonzo's entire deployment here.
And that's kind of what you need, I feel like. I mean, we've seen this happen this past week with some really good recon play. And with Gonzo, you kind of always have to be a little bit wary of what kind of madness he might throw out at you. But maybe let's talk real quick about Tannenberg. This is, like you said, before we kind of got started here, this is a map that normally you see from much bigger kind of playthroughs, but it's been remixed, I believe was the term you wanted to throw down.
Yeah, they've just cut up the map into a 1v1. And honestly, this is probably one of the better maps they've released in recent memory. It's actually a well-designed and rather balanced map with a variety of different playstyles. Like, the whole central hill position is quite fun to fight over, and you've got a good amount of open ground north and south to actually move around vehicles, but there's still infantry fighting, yeah, as well, because it sounds. Overall, it's a good map. It's much better compared to the maps they're bringing out in Warno.
Yeah, but you know what? There's some teething I think that's still going on over there with Warno too, so...
A lot of teething.
Yes, indeed. They're practically gumming it at some points, but maybe this war is the is the more important one for the time being. No, I do love, like you said, that bunker in the center. Fascinating. That gives a lot of chance for vehicles to kind of shine around it, but like you said, nothing beats the old kind of foot sloggers. How's it going to match up today? 'Cause, I mean, with the Juggernaut, we don't see Juggernauts nearly ever. So what's the deal? What should we expect?
Yeah, it's going to be quite interesting. I mean, you don't lose that much income, especially against a balanced player, but you do get a quite nice long game bonus. So, of course, Gonzo definitely going to be playing more for the long game in that regard. But both are playing like mechanized style decks, not full on tank divisions. I mean, yes, Lovas is technically a tank division, but not really. But both have a lot of infantry as usual. So it's probably just going to come down to good old infantry fights. Gonzo does have a bit more of the long-range anti-tank advantage.
He does. He certainly does. Of course, losing some of it right there as a 233 goes down to a Terran. The Terrans over here with the first Lovas must be ecstatic, because it's one of the few times that whatever they shoot at, they have a fair degree of just kind of penetrating.
Yeah, a lot of Gonzo's early game armor investment is really just lightly armed vehicles, so those Terrans do eat them up for breakfast, because they are really bloody good light tanks from seeing Shkodder invest more heavily into those light tanks up north, and Gonzo going to be bringing out the big guns with a Stug 4.
Now, looking to the central position here, yes, we have a Legionary push, in fact, the March of the Legion, but a Focke-Wulf 190, that might stop this in its tracks, and a good chunk of it just falls to pieces right now.
Ah, good, very clutch bombing run, yeah. Nice thing, even though, those Legionari are scary infantry, the Hungarians have beefy infantry, so they can actually contend quite well against whatever 17th SS can throw at them.
I think the big thing over here that you kind of have to watch out for with these Legionari is, yeah, you have that Hungarian officer right there, but if you kind of peek your head out just a little bit too much in the woods, you're going to find yourself getting shot off. Though, that said, they still actually do have the Fausts, and whoa, that officer went down super quick, so now this entire position over here is in danger, I think, of getting overrun.
Yeah, this is a very good concentrated push here from Gonzo, and he's very close to getting this forest, but still Shkodder has quite a bit of infantry left alive, and not as great as CQC specialists compared to the Legionary, but managing to actually encircle him, yeah. That could actually work out quite well to Shkodder's advantage. And bombing the encirclement, what is this, a Hoi 4 match?
Exactly. Exactly, though you have to watch out, because there now is at least a minor anti-air net on the field. So the Focke-Wulf, yeah, he's going to fly around a bit. And yes, the Legionary over here have taken losses. But guys, remember, there's a death's head on those squads for a reason. So, they're meant to be surrounded. They don't care, man.
Yeah, yep, and nice thing or 17th assassins, you got a lot of those Legionaries which you can throw at the enemy. And he has his second push coming in. Still quite a lot of Husaruks left alive, but with fresh Molotovs coming right off the counter. They're not going to be able to survive that long.
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, just looking over here back in A for a second, honestly, he's pretty much tapped on Legionary. So for the next 5 minutes, his infantry game's going to be a little bit weak, except for that force. And he's already taken, 33% casualties with those squads.
Yeah, he is going to be able to capture the forest, so he should be able to reinforce it with some weaker infantry to hold on to it, which would be quite beneficial for Gonzo here. I mean, just looking at the rest of the map, down south is relatively quiet, neither side investing too much here. But up north we are seeing a bit of heavy play. A Stug 4 did go down and seeing a second run being brought in. So both sides investing quite a bit here.
True, and a couple of Tyrants are starting to go down here as, yes, the Stug 4 has the potential to go down, but unless he's getting super close towards that Nimrod, I would say he's in pretty good shape no matter what.
Yep. Yep. And at close quarters, those Tyrants, not super duper scary against a Stug 4, but they do have a potential to cause a few critical hits.
Yes, and that's kind of what you need, though, with the Hungarians consistently, is just to stay respectable throughout the most of the match, and that's really where you want to be.
It's always very interesting trying to play low fast, because apart from the Act Panaches, you don't have a whole lot of heavy AT available, so it's really about using those Turan tanks and keeping the Nimrod effectively, and use them in CQC situations like that is what allows him to slap, because they got a lovely side shot, yeah.
I looked away for 1 second because there's that martyr that was in the central position, and I didn't even see that stroke go down, but geez, yeah, that's absolutely correct.
Yeah, really good momentum up north here from Shkodder, because there's not a whole lot of armor left here from Gonzo. He's bringing another Stug 4, but in those town fights, as we're seeing, it's quite deadly to be Stugly.
Well, and the funny thing, too, about it, and I let me doff my hat there at the wordplay, but looking at these towns, this is not your standard town, which I think I kind of like a lot more. Is that, yes, you have some really kind of nifty line of sight you can kind of play with, but it isn't like, there's a single crossroads, and if you don't take that single crossroads, the entire map falls to your opponent. Like, it's confined, but not too confined. It's like a World War I trench, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at here.
This is actually a well-designed town from a gameplay perspective. You essentially got 3 avenues of approach. You got a little bit of cover on the side, but not too much. And it's not too building dense, so it is somewhat reasonable to actually bring in tanks to provide fly support. Like I was saying, this is actually a really well-designed map for 1v1.
Yep, it's kind of the Goldilocks effect going on here. You're absolutely correct.
Just perfect.
Now, we continue to creep closer and closer over here into B. One thing we haven't seen a whole lot of from either side is really any kind of artillery. Now, of course, the Hungarians will then have an off map to kind of deal with here. And on the German side of things, there's, a quad pack of mortars. Where would you be kind of like placing stuff like this for indirect fire? Would you be looking to kind of concentrate the north? Would you put them in the center and cut it so you could support both flanks? Like, what would your play be here?
I think right now it's just the north, because both sides are investing quite heavily. As well, good old off-map in the forest in the middle would work out quite well, but Shkodder's more content of using airplanes as his off-map artillery, trying to pick off Legionaries, run at a time, and very close to actually tipping back at flag.
And and just as I said that, actually, I'm starting to see mortar rounds carry on. Oh no, it's the SG-33.
Providing some very long-range fire support, and a good position for Armada, being able to cover the open ground up north. A nice thing for Gonzo is he doesn't have to worry about a whole lot of long-range anti-tank, especially in a safe phase. So he can just plop Mardas in the middle of an open field and not have to worry too much about getting blapped by enemy tanks.
True. The converse, however, is very much not true.
Yeah, Shkodder, as you've seen, is really deploying all his tanks either behind forest or on the side of the town, trying to use the cover to his advantage.
Ooh, and the Nimrod actually takes a hit right now. Guys, the Nimrod is, again, a surprisingly effective weapon system. Of course, he just goes down, as does the Turan to its southwest. And I don't think that the Hungarians have a whole lot left in terms of early armor here. I mean, we are 10 seconds away from Phase B. But I still don't think he's got a lot of armor just, left. And recon plane's about to go down. Yep. Yep, there we go.
down he goes. But it seems like Gonzo is starting to regain a little bit of momentum up north here. I mean, Shkodder still has a good defensive position with all the infantry, but knocking out a lot of those armoured vehicles does allow Gonzo to start pushing potentially into his town. And yep, he's finally getting some infantry reinforcements. Volk Deutsche are gonna be Voking to make the area a bit more Deutsche than usual.
Yeah, I mean, and this actually, in my mind, I know I will lambast the play of using disheartened troops consistently, but this is the right time to use them.
Yep.
Use them to open up the the enemy position and to understand where the main fire points might be. But I mean, just don't depend on them to actually take the ground.
Yeah, at least they're better armed than Assad's troop, and they're actually somewhat decent for, I say individual, firefights, but still, you want to have stuff backing them up. Disheartened definitely screws you over when you're being shot at. We've just seen lots of light vehicle play up north, the 2-3-1s forcing the Toady back for a bit. I think once we see his infantry hit the front line here from Gonzo, he's going to start making some pretty big plays. We've seen Shkodder invest quite heavy in anti-air up north and seen the first Hetcher on the field.
Yep, which is kind of what you need to see happen. Now, the 231s, let's not kid ourselves by saying that they are somehow inordinately effective weapons platforms even against the Terrans, but autocannons can get that stress, just like we see here. Is it going to be super effective stress? Maybe not so much, but it's stress nonetheless. And, stress, as they say, is a silent killer. So.
It is. Especially when I'm shouting about how stressed I am at 2 o'clock in the morning.
No, at that point, I figure your roommates would probably make that the very live kill on that one. Last Terran actually going down to the north, so it's just a couple of Toldies, and that's all that's left for this wave of Terran. I mean, I guess, the 17th SS doesn't really like their music that much.
Yeah. Shkodder, he invested quite a lot on that anti-air firepower, but it's definitely leaving them open right now for this push, as Gonzo just has so much committed ground forces on the front line here. I mean, he did have that 175mm up north, but he is almost completely kaput down to 1 HP, so this is pretty much Gonzo's time to shine and trying to clear up this northern town exactly.
Now, the one thing that is working for him is that the Arc Panthers don't have a whole lot of competition. And they're not going to have competition for quite a bit of time. Unfortunately, there's only 6, and he's got 2 of them up to the north.
Yep. And the Jagdpanzer can only really do so much, so that's again some long-range hits in the IG-33 here, which is definitely going to help out quite a bit. It can probably force that northern Gonzo position of the IG and Marder 3 to back off a little bit.
I don't know about that. I think that IG-33 is just going to take it in the teeth and just continue to pound until he goes down.
He has the heat shells off, so he's actually hindering himself in this engagement. I understand why he just microing him to preserve the heat shells, but now's the time to turn them on.
Yes, indeed. Unfortunately, I don't think he's really realizing that his IG-33 is necessarily engaging said Petzers.
Yep, and he is going to pay the price when we're seeing machine guns being brought in from Shkodder to bolster the line. And that Gonzo, unfortunately for him, through the fog of war, didn't really capitalize on his potential push. He's keeping all of his infantry very defensive. I think he probably thinks there's more in the town than there actually is. And just looking in the center, we're actually seeing a bit of a Hungarian resurgence.
Well, that was the thing I was going to bring up once you finished your point here, is that, yes, I understand, I guess, why he's actually using those disheartened troops, is that right now he's still bleeding points. So, does it make sense for him to go and engage with troops that are less than combat effective over the hopes of maybe gaining a flag? Much better just to kind of take the committed bleed. Yes, I know we're back to a 12-12, that's a consequence of the far north. But, not for nothing. It's an opportunity for him to just kind of stay put, continue to build up some strength, and if, someone comes in, sure. The Volksdeutsch should take the first hits, so why not?
Yeah, in these, balance / juggernaut matches, it's not really a game of +2, +3 bleeds, it's really just a game of a, slow and steady, consistent bleed. We're seeing up north, Shkodder actually dropping in a big off-map artillery. I don't feel like he's going to have the forces to really capitalize. It's more of just a defensive barrage to keep Gonzo away for the time being. But Gonzo is actually starting his northern push here with a platoon's worth of infantry.
What's more as well, I mean, yes, he's probably going to take out that Pack 38, but congratulations, you take out a Pack 38. There's still another, half a dozen of them.
Oh, and naval rifle 42 being brought in from Gonzo, so he's going to be replying back with artillery in kind. So I'm feeling like his northern town is, well, it's not going to be much of a town.
Yeah, exactly. Radical redevelopment.
Yeah.
And the first shell's starting to land, and yes, I mean, they're freaking out the Volksdeutsche, but those poor guys have never really seen frontline combat before. And it's a 15-9. We look away for 1 second, and the middle part of that field is just bleeding and bleeding and bleeding.
Yeah, back to 14-10, but Gonzo still has a very strong position in that forest as those SS Legionaries give off just enough CQC firepower to ward off those Hungarian death stacks, and because that forest is just so bloody thick, you can't really bring up any of the tanks to provide any effective fire support. You either need to use aircraft or artillery to pound away.
Naval firing at the northern anti-air position. Takes out the Hitzer!
Oh!
Wow, that is an unusually effective naval barrage. That's not supposed to work like that.
No, that was extremely cost efficient, really. Knocking out both of those units. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. And we're seeing Shkodder actually trying to push a little bit too much here with that 1-2, getting way deep behind enemy lines.
Well, I think what we had here was just basically one of those moments wherein we had, really for lack of a better term, a cavalry attack, which is radically out of time over here. And he's probably going to take out the Flak 36, which is still a loss. It's just not worth a tank at this point. Oh, no. Ooh, this is interesting.
He's going to back off now. The Volksdeutsche is trying to chase him down. Oh, the Flak 88 and the Pack 40. That's Gonzo is really starting to gain a pretty nasty anti-tank position up north. And if he can just zone out those long-range fields, it's going to be very hard for Shkodder to use his armed vehicles.
I think the fascinating thing for me was that he was taking out the Flak 36, and it was kind of like, okay, you know what? The big kind of scary thing is down. Throw in all of my air power. I don't know if he knew that the Flak 88 was there.
Oh, yeah. Smart move. But yeah, the Flak 88 definitely did.
He used some shells already, that's for sure.
And we're seeing the second Flak 88, so it's going to be even harder for the Hungarians to use their air power. And they are pretty reliant on their air power, really. You kind of need them to make up for the fact that you don't have a whole lot of proper medium tanks.
Martyr 3 actually starting to curl around the southern side of the town, and kind of weird to see the Martyr 3 being used as an indirect fire platform.
Oh yeah, it's because it's the 76mm Marder, so it's basically just a German Su-76.
Oh, it absolutely is, yeah. But it's again, the idea though of seeing the arcing shot just doesn't seem to work for me mentally.
Yeah, it's actually. Now I just realised that the Marder 3 is a Czech tank with Russian guns being used by Germans to shoot Russians.
It was mounted on the
It's a Panzer 38T.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a Czech tank.
Yep.
I just love how the Germans just mismatched everything together.
the first globalized community who didn't want to be globalized. They can stuff from every single country, sticking it together.
Yeah.
So Lovich says coming on in another, several actually Hosodogs with MG42s. I think there's a secondary defensive line being set up here. Unfortunately, they're so far back that if the front line goes that direction, Gonzo's not going to push. He's not going to care.
Yeah, Gonzo's in a very good position heading into C phase. He's the Juggernaut income, so he's gonna be in the advantage in C phase and not kill another Jagdpanzer. But he has the map control, he has long range firepower, and he still controls the central forest quite well. And honestly, I think maybe for Shkodder trying to push either down south or in the center would be a better call for him right now.
Also, the 210 off map, I'm not sure it's going to get an artillery strike off in time. He might get freaked out. Oop, doesn't even get the artillery strike. That's a problem and a half.
Yeah, and he's probably going to get shot down here. Oh no! Ju-88 coming in, choking the fire. But really, lose the Ju-88.
Actually, that's a good question. The Flak 88s are not exactly known for their accuracy in shooting down planes, but I guess if you fire enough shells at it, technically you'll get lucky eventually.
Yeah, and I think it's a minus 20% modifier for shooting down a German-based aircraft with the Flak 88. It's like a friendly
Ah,
fire
yes,
debuff.
you're right. The traitor debuff. You're right.
Yeah.
Sometimes known as the Valkyrie bug.
Yep.
But looking elsewhere, the southern side again. If you want good duty on this map, you go to the south, man. No one cares down there.
Yeah. I understand, right, because it's a big open field between you and the enemy. So, why shed blood over an open field when you can do it in a forest or a town? You know,
Exactly.
They probably have
Exactly.
beer somewhere in the town somewhere, or vodka.
Oh no, no, there are no Russians here. Remember, no
No
Russian.
Russians. But yeah, we're just seeing an absolute bloodbath up north as both sides are committing everything here. But just looking at the force dispersions, Gonzo has a much larger force, really enough to actually push Shkodder out the town, but he's just playing it safe, and he can afford to do that. He's got the point bleed, he's got the armor advantage, he's secure in the air, he's in a very comfortable position.
Well, I also think he's waiting for the Nebelwerfer, which just finished reloading. So look to see an artillery barrage, probably as soon as he fixes the front lines.
Yeah, he's moving up, and probably start barraging something soon, but we're seeing two off-map artilleries being brought in from Shkodder, so he is not messing about.
And then actually the 149s as well. So, yep, this is going to be just a concentration of force, just against a concentration of force. So if those field police units don't get moving quickly, this is going to get ugly very, very fast over here for the 17th SS.
Yeah.
We are seeing signs of relative life. Very, very, very meager kind of pushes, but regardless, worthwhile.
It's just coming down to really just a northern meat grinder. And yeah, it's just a shame we're not really seeing anything else happen along the other edges of the map. I mean, nice thing with the Hungarians that you can afford to make like risky maneuvers, because if you lose a few Tehran tanks, who really cares? You got a lot of them and they're very cheap.
Well, there was a bit of a tentative push by some hussars over here going right for that forest. Unfortunately, caught very much out of position, and there's actually some minor play here to the south. It was a 15-9 to 14-10. BF-109 is probably going to claim a kill, maybe even the Focke-Wulf, or rather the Flak 36. Because there's no ground cover over here otherwise.
Oh.
And the
Nope.
BF-109's got the speed too. Jeez, I never appreciate that.
Yeah, Shkodder's anti-air, he's definitely using them a little bit more aggressively because they do have nice armor penetration shells. But it did mean he lost all of them, so he's starting from, well, ground up, so to speak, in his anti-aircraft game.
Well, continuing that, we're actually going to see the 105 off maps are going to secure, or at least barrage, this northern position. In about the next 10 seconds or so. There's another Nebelwerfer, though, too. So, all the troops that are about to die, I'm pretty sure are going to get replaced. The Nebelwerfers are going to strike, and then thus shall be the beginning of the end.
Yeah.
That would warrant for Shkodder.
His off-map artillery is just essentially buying him a few minutes, really just a minute or so, before Gonzo can counter-attack. I mean, he's got even more Voidocha being brought on in. Yeah, once those Nebelwerfer for 42 start blapping, there's not going to be much of a town left for Gonzo to take.
No,
oh, number 210? Oh no. Not again.
The 210's he's gonna get it off, but he's not. I don't know if he's gonna survive it still.
There's no distractions, your 88 to come save him this time. Or maybe it'd be enough? Oh, it's gonna be enough! Wow. Tank your loader aircraft. Must be at a 20% debuff.
I would say, where are your Ruthenian friends now? But, the inner geographer in me is not really sure that I even set the right location. Wow, look at all the fucking off-map barrages.
Why is he doing two in the same... I think that's a little bit wasteful having two in the same location here, but he's really just trying to keep Gonzo back with the power of God on his side. And God being an artillery piece in this case, preferably a heavy one.
Sure, sure. I mean, if I'm gonna start throwing some Napoleon in here, but that's probably not the right idea. Going and playing in Tannenberg. Um,
Do you
but
think a
the one
12-pounder cannon could, like, blow up a light tank? Like a
uh,
Panzer II. Like 30 millimeters of armor.
I mean, it had the muzzle velocity. The issue is the accuracy, and eventually you're still just throwing a bowling ball at the side of a, angled vehicle.
You'd get, like, a massive concussion, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
That's a test I
Absolutely.
want to see.
I'm sure there's somebody out there who's probably
Yeah.
done something like that. Um, Strokes in the meantime, flying under a lot of high explosive fire. They might get unlucky, but even as that's happening, the last kind of light tanks, I think, in quite a bit of space, are right by this forest, and they are not doing very well.
Oh, no, no, they are not. This is quite a big force here from Gonzo, and really just from the north and the centre, he's just managed to build up these rather large forces he's been treating very effectively against Shkodder. And I feel like once these two tanks go down in the centre, as well as that one Hungarian squad, we're gonna see a +2 bleed here for Gonzo.
Actually, another thing I actually really kind of love is that he's sacking an MG-34 Peak squad
Hmm?
to move Volksdeutsche in, which, there's a piece of me that just reels at that kind of what I would perceive to be waste. But now, rushing away from him, there's a Legionary squad on the other side who can't be seen just yet. So it's like, little bit by little bit, these guys are gonna get hunted.
Yeah. It's quite funny that the Volksdeutsche get the Panzerfaust, but it was oh no, they get two MG-34s instead. Never mind, I forgot.
Yeah, well, and at least it makes a sort of amount of sense to it.
Yeah. Oh, the Legionnaire coming in.
Oh, he's gonna
Faust
get him.
array.
Yep.
Lovely jubbly.
Now, the Huguenots are trying super hard to get to the 222, and I was going to say, when you see that arc go up, you know they're going to get hit. Last barrage is to the north, I think, also, the 1 to 105s. One barrage coming down, second barrage for the next 5 seconds, and the Naples continue to be silent. I don't know, do you think this is that Gonzo just figuring, you know what, doesn't really matter if I actually push to the north, it's just more of a threat as like a backstop, just in case?
I think he just forgot they were there, honestly.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, because one of them's not even limbered, so I guess that does make a
Oh,
sort
there
of
we go.
difference.
Now he's starting to aim. But he doesn't have that much of a force to potentially counterattack with once the neighbor Alphas have fired their shots off, because the off-map and on-map artillery has been pretty effective here from Shkodder at keeping Gonzo from making too much progress up north, just creating, like, bloody no man's land in Tannenberg. I don't think that's the first time that's happened.
I do think this is more of an FU barrage.
Hmm?
This is an FU barrage. That infantry's not making it out. And actually, now I'm thinking about it. I think wasn't Tannenberg a little bit more maneuver warfare actually? Maybe I'm
Probably.
wrong. Last couple of rounds straggling in, and that's more than enough, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like you said, there is no town left, but there is also no Hungarian army really left up here.
He's bringing in a platoon of Turan runs to try and reinforce, but there's so much heavy anti-tank up north, and it doesn't have a whole lot of infantry support to begin with. Yeah, they're not going to be able to perform all that well. We've seen that Gonzo has two 105mm guns on his side, so they can just start doing some counter-battery operations, which I'm guessing is what they're doing.
Yes, they absolutely are.
That's literally their job.
The thing actually I really kind of appreciate about Gonzo is that we don't often see, let's say, long-range kind of battery fire. Yes, you'll see people go after the mortars and things like that. I feel like Gonzo is very, very active about that particular kind of posture. Most people just kind of put up with it. Gonzo says F you. Or SK-18 in this particular case, but regardless. Which I appreciate. I really do
And
appreciate
play
it.
the artillery wars.
Yeah. Yeah, it brings me back to my childhood, which was a disturbing number of years ago with the whole kind of tank game where you had the...
Oh,
yes.
yes.
Oh, yeah.
With the arcs and everything, and you have...
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that was a lot of time wasted on that. Oh, down south, we're seeing a push down south? Wow. It's a little bit too late here from Shkodder, but it's nice to see.
Well, and another Focke-Wulf, I think, is going to go down as the BF-109 continues to soar on in. Of course, as I say that, they've had both of them on the field. He's not going to get there in time. Okay, so that guy limps off. But you're right. There's a huge number of, comparatively huge number of troops moving on in. Unfortunately, I still don't know that there's going to be a whole lot of effort that's going to be gained here.
Yeah, as Gonzo actually has a pretty decent defensive position down south, and he's got 2 Stunk Force here as well, which can definitely provide a decent amount of fire support. But even then, this is just a little bit too little too late. There's not that much flag potential for him to... Or he could capture 2, potentially, to... Oh, 3, actually. And never mind, there's a lot of flag potential. I take
Yep,
that back.
there's flag potential, but it means that he has to disregard a completely different area of the theater, though, too.
Yeah, and up north, I feel like with so much being invested down south, if Gonzo, sniffs blood in the water, he should be able to realize that, hey, there's probably nothing up north if it's much have been invested down south here.
And also that 1,000 kilograms of bombs just hit, too.
Yeah, yeah. And there goes that push.
And I think I think there's a potential for a couple of ground strafing. Now, the G6s don't have a lot of ammunition. I always kind of think that they should. They do not.
Oh.
One by one, the Trans are starting to get picked off. As in between the 233s, the 222, the Stoke 4. And yeah, they're taking losses, but this is still equipment that the Hungarians can't bear to lose at this point.
No. He only has those B-phase tank cards. You don't really get them many C-phase tank cards, I believe, for the Hungarians, so... Yeah.
I think this is the swan song. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's just you don't have a whole lot of heavy AT. It really comes down to the hedges and a few Pack 40s you get for the Hungarians, but Gonzo can definitely meet out that heavy anti-tank battle. He has the Stugs, he has the Martyrs, he has Pack 40s of his own to compare against the Hungarians. I'm seeing another huge Hussar push up north here from Shkodder. I guess it's more of a defensive line.
And another Ju-80 run in the south. So as the next couple of unfortunates get some real attention over here from the 17th. There is a little bit of life, but I wouldn't say that's really a major thing. I think it's more of like the last gasps here. I think he's on life support. I hate to say it.
Really just trying to throw in everything an attack move as a final resort. But I really wish we saw this southern push earlier, as could have actually gone very well here for Shkodder, because he's actually making a little bit of territorial gains, and he raced a lot of points up north in essentially gaining no ground. You probably could have just set up a decent defensive net, and then just either try to push north or a central position. It just seems like the classic error of just running into a tunnel vision battle without any way of leaving the tunnel.
But, at the same time, I think it might be a little bit unfair for us to say that. I mean, other than the God Vision part of it, I think you were right to note before, when you are playing as the First Lovus, your initial gut reaction is not to do a cavalry charge across open ground. It isn't. And if you're in Division 1, you know at this point already that there's a lot of weapons platforms that can fight you back. And when you have, the Stogs, which will obliterate your light tanks, I agree with you. There should have been at least a rotation a little bit earlier, but I would say actually through the center as opposed to through the south.
Center would have worked as well. Just mass hussar spam through the forest. That's cheap and easy, and you get a lot of hussars, Khan.
Oh yeah. I mean you need to have at least one hussar charge at some point during a war, so it makes perfect sense.
Of course, actually, I thought it'd be a worse KD for Shkodder, but only 1,000-ish point difference, so pretty standard.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that really came from some of the heavier planes at the end as well. And you can see the terrain's very respectable. Taking out a couple vehicles here and there, taking out some infantry. Unfortunately, I think the air power didn't quite get the usage it really needed to get, nor do I really think that the off-maps were quite as efficient as they might have been as well.
Yeah, we got a 1BF 109, Krontas getting 1, 2, 3, 4 aerial kills, and even knocking out an anti-tank gun.
Jeez. Doing decent well. Yeah, I mean, a couple of small things here and there. I mean, still, solid game by both sides. I can't make it sound like it was Shkodder kind of throwing the game. I just think that unfortunately he was not able to take that 20 points from B and really turn that into any kind of consistent, effective advantage.
Yeah. I will have to say, I really like his maps. Eugene's done a very good job with just... And they need to do this with more maps, where they just take bigger maps and just cut it out into a 1v1 sector. Because I really hope we see more Tannenberg play. 1v1 Tannenberg is. Because that map has a lot of potential for some really interesting play styles.
So basically, folks, what he's saying is, for those of you in the league, don't you dare ban that map.
Yep.
You
And
know,
play Finland. I'm not biased.
exactly. You play Finland. You're
Play
absolutely
Finland on Tannenberg, your match is getting casted. Simple as.
correct. That's how you know to do it, folks. And welcome to the SD2 League, or as I like to call it, time for finish.
Yep.
Anyway, folks, until Thursday, as always, this is Connell Work.
I'm Rangaroo, take it easy.